Hi, I'm Joe Paiva, and I am with Dave Doyle, retired from the NGS, and he is here to share with us some, shall I say, ideas about what surveyors can expect when the new NATRF 2022 comes into being. So, Dave, thank you for doing this.
Pleasure, Joe.
So, let's start with what is it going to be called, and do we have a reasonable estimate on when we will start officially using the new system?
Sure, exactly. So there's two parts to this. All right, so we have what we would traditionally call the horizontal datum, now more appropriately a geometric datum, because it is three-dimensional, adding the ellipsoid height. There's actually going to be four of those, because the United States exists on four different tectonic plates. So for the conterminous U.S. and Alaska, that will be the North American Terrestrial Reference Frame of 2022, or NATRF 2022 be the working acronym. In the Pacific, it will be PACREF, so Hawaii and American Samoa, that will be on its own definition. And the folks in Guam and the Northern Marianas, they will have their own definition, the Marianas terrestrial reference frame, and then of course our territories in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, will be on the Caribbean reference frame. So four different reference frames, all existing sort of at the same time, because they're all moving in different directions. All right, all supported by the cores. So in the past, the datums were realized, is the phrase that people like to use. They were realized by passive survey marks that we all love. Now the datums will be realized by the cores, the continuously operating reference stations, and NGS monitors those every day for their integrity. So that will define the geometric side. The vertical, on the other hand, will be sort of exactly the opposite. It will cover the entire United States, and it will go from Maine to Guam with one vertical datum, and that will be called the North American Pacific Geopotential Datum. And notice it doesn't say vertical, it says geopotential, because it's going to be derived exclusively through gravity observations, which have now been completed for the entire United States. The rollout will essentially come, my way of expressing it is in two ways. The final heights and final coordinates, and that includes state plane coordinates along with latitude, longitude, and UTM coordinates, very likely will come from NGS the middle of 25, summer of 25. They will say, yeah, we're good to go. It won't be official until very likely 26, because NGS is going to have to make a report to what's referred to as the Federal Geographic Data Committee. Once they do that, and it gets blessed by that group of other federal agencies, then I suspect the outcome of that will be a Federal Register notice to that effect that, okay, these datums are now live and we are now official. And it's going to be an interesting time. The vast majority of users are going to be working in state plane coordinates. And one of the things that's happened this time around that never happened before when we did the datum changes, when we went from 27 to NAD 83 or from NGVD 29 to NAVD 88, we now have tools that you can estimate what these changes are going to look like, and they are exceptionally good. So NGS has basically two tools. One, you can compute the potential height changes. It's called X-Geoid 20. It will actually be replaced probably a little bit later this year by X-Geoid 2022, which will be the final one. But the difference between those two is millimeters. So for magnitude purposes, how much is the height going to change in my backyard to impact my clients, et cetera, you can use what's out there now, X-Geoid 20. And just last July, Dr. Michael Dennis released a tool called Alpha NCAT, which now provides estimates of what the state plane coordinates are going to look like. And the country is going to look vastly different with state plane coordinates this time around, because Dr. Dennis did a great job of reaching out to the states. The states really are the users of state plane coordinates, not NGS, and has said, tell us what you want it to do. So, for example, Ohio, the state of Ohio, which now has 2 zones, Ohio North and South Zone, it will have 89 zones, 1 for each county and 1 for the whole state. Where you live, Kansas City, both Kansas Cities together, because you're neighbors, you're going to get your own special zone, right? So that's something that never existed before. The Navajo Nation is getting their own special zone. So I highly advise surveyors to start looking at these tools now, because they're out there. You can run them and estimate what positional changes are going to look like, so that you can be well advised to your clients, to make sure, if we're going to change state plane coordinates in Maryland, where I live, by over 1 million feet, then what kind of impact does that have on whatever products and services your clients are providing, whether that's community GIS or, whatever your clients might do. But those tools are there, and you can start doing that now. And the difference between what those tools show now versus what will be final is literally at the millimeter level, so that's in the noise of most people's data to begin with.
So the average local surveyor is probably mostly impacted in the use of NATRF, whichever, whether it's the horizontal positioning or the vertical, either for state plane coordinates or possibly for floodplain types of determinations. So my impression from observing other surveyors at these presentations done by various people from NGS or other experts has been, this is really complicated. I'll just let my software take care of it. To me, there's a hazard there, because if you don't know what the result is going to be, or at least the ballpark idea, then you have no way of knowing if you entered, first of all, the parameters correctly, or for that matter, because software has been known to be wrong, to be produced incorrectly, they would have no idea the software is giving them bad information that they would then publish, that other people would rely on. So do you have any suggestions on how surveyors, and maybe not so much the owners, but the people who work for them, who kind of do the real work, apologies, what can they be doing to try to be more informed about all this?
Well, that's real good. So first, I would hope that the various state societies would have NGS people come in, many of the regional advisors come in, and give them a practical discussion on what the datum changes are going to look like, and also go play with these tools that are out there. One of the things I'm constantly telling when I give a presentation, when I talk to surveyors, I say, look, NGS is going to create these various tools, but in all likelihood, you're not going to use them directly from NGS. You're going to use them in whatever package you get from whatever vendor you have. If you're using TopCon equipment, well, you're going to get it through TopCon or Leica or whatever you have. Talk to those vendors now and find out what they know about this. So if you're using XYZ equipment, go to whoever that technical rep is that you buy your equipment from, you get your technical support from, and say, hey, this is coming next year. What are your plans to implement this? And because that's where it's really going to happen. The NGS is there. NGS has the responsibility for this, but how each one of those vendors are going to implement that, that's a whole different issue, and NGS has no control over that. And are they up to date with NGS? Are they planning to be ready to go with this when NGS rolls this out? And a significant difference this time around that we never saw before, a couple of things really. First of all, most communities in this country are already sitting on mountains of high accuracy data, because surveyors have been using great technologies, GPS and GNSS now, And so they've collected massive amounts of high accuracy stuff for the smallest communities in the country. So that's one big issue that they're going to have to deal with. The other is that we're also looking at the implementation of a third GPS system, Block 3 satellites, and we're going to get a new L5 signal that's going to vastly improve positioning. All of this coming along at just about the same time. And in the past, when surveyors and others accessed or realized the reference frame, either vertically or horizontal, they did it through what we now call passive control, brass caps, wherever they are. Right? We all love them. What we've certainly seen in the last number of years is this huge transition towards real-time networks. So that the surveyor jumps out of his vehicle, stands there for 15 seconds, boom, tied to the reference frame, done. Right? Not going and searching so much anymore for that passive control. I'm pretty sure, and I've talked to many of the vendors, those folks are really anxious to move fast with this. They want to see this happen as quickly as possible. So almost overnight, these surveyors could see, you know, hey, I got brand new coordinates and I'm not prepared for this. I don't know what it means. And again, talking to those folks, are they going to be able to support NAD 83 2011, let's say, for some period of time? So these are important things I think surveyors need to be investigating now to be ready for this come next summer.
Thank you, Dave. So there are so many underlying questions that surveyors will come up with. I know one of the most common that I've seen is, why are we even doing this? But I'm not even going to open that can of worms with you, because this video would run for 2 or 3 days. So I want to thank you, because I think getting surveyors to think about what's coming ahead of time before it is upon them is, I think, the biggest piece of advice that you can be giving them, especially if the people who are listening to this video are owners of surveying companies, senior managers. They need to be making sure that their people are properly equipped with the correct software and the correct understanding of how to use it.
If I could add one last thing, and it's not often mentioned in this broad discussion, and that is for those surveyors and engineers who are working in the coastal environment. In addition to the new geodetic datums, we're going to have a new national tidal datum epoch. So the office that manages all of that information, called the Center for Operational Oceanographic Products and Service, part of NOAA, they're literally connected to NGS. In fact, they're one floor down in the same building. So that will roll out roughly about the same time frame, so sometime during 2025. So those surveyors who are working in that environment are going to see significant changes, not only in the tidal heights themselves, depending upon whatever sea level change has been, but also the relationship between the geodetic vertical datum and the tidal vertical datum. So again, I think that's something they need to investigate to deal with those kinds of clients.
Thank you. I actually thought of that when you were mentioning this thing about the vertical datum, or whatever it's going to be called. I've already forgotten. I know it's geoid based.
It's based on a geoid, but the vertical datum will be the North American Pacific Geopotential Datum 2022, or PACREF. I don't like the acronym myself, but that's okay. That's what it's going to be. That's the official name.
Yeah, so geopotential, hopefully surveyors realize that gravity plays a big part in determining elevations of any kind and in determining the geoid model. So the people in the coastal areas are going to have one additional, I was going to call it headache, but I'm going to call it one additional challenge that they have to work into, that the people in the center of the country are probably breathing a huge sigh of relief. Well, I can probably ignore that at least for a while. Now, anyway, thank you so much for spending time with us, because this is a mind-bending topic that takes a lot of thought and reflection Hopefully, there'll be more and more surveyors thinking about this in the shower. That's what we need to get to. Thank you very much, Dave.
My pleasure, Joe. Anytime.